Hi everyone, it's Shannon and welcome to today's video. So I am back with another one of the new Charlotte Tilbury 9 pans. They are called the Charlotte's Palette of Beautifying Eye Trends, and there's 6 of them, and today we're going to be covering the pink and the purple one. So it is Pink, Love, and Digital Lilac. So these are the two. I did do a full in-depth video covering all 6 of the 9 pans, doing swatches, kind of talking about like the reason for the clear plastic, no mirror, etc., and comparing it as far as size, all of that, full swatches, formulas, everything. So that video you can find here. Today I wanted to go a little bit more in depth with these 2 palettes. Now I did do already another video with the warm, the sunset one and the neutral one, and I did some comparisons. So a lot of people were asking me, like, they wanted me to compare the Pink Love with a lot of the Charlotte Tilbury quads. This is very, very pink, whereas Charlotte's quads in the past have always been very warm leaning. This is more cool tone leaning. This is more like true pink, whereas if you go back to the Sensual Sunset palette, you will see that like the Pillow Talk Dreams, the Darling palette, there's a lot of similarities with those tones. Not so much with this one. I also no longer own the original Pillow Talk quad. I never really used it, but looking at like my old videos and I kind of looked at like swatches, again, it was more warm leaning, where this is more cool tone leaning and more truer pink. So just wanted to kind of say that here, but I do have a couple palettes that I am going to compare to. I'm not comparing it to any like larger pan palettes because then it could get overwhelming. So what I did is I'm comparing it to any Charlotte Tilbury palettes that I have, pretty much quads, that are maybe similar, as well as then any 9 pans or even quads that I have from other brands that could be, maybe you have them and it's an alternative, or maybe you don't want to spend $60 and you want a cheaper alternative. So I am going to go over that as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the Pink Love palette. So the Pink Love is obviously the pink palette, and it is described as a pink eyeshadow palette with shades of mauve, rose, and candy pink. So again, 9 shades. Now there's 5 new formulas. The formulas are very similar, and in doing the swatches, very similar to the Beautyverse. And honestly, as I was swatching my old quads, they're very similar to the quads too. They say they're new formulas. Now the mattes, I would say, are very similar. The Molten Satins are very similar to like what's in the Charlotte Tilbury quads or other formulas. So like these like 3 shimmer shades are very similar to like the Molten Satin shade. The Crystal Chrome and the Crystal Pop, they're not like the pop shades. They're very, very different in formula, texture, everything. And then the Diamond Dimension is like a party topper. Not every palette has all 5 formulas, and there's different breakdowns. So what I'm going to do now is kind of break it down as far as what's in this palette, and then kind of do the swatch comparisons that I have. So the Pink Love palette has 4 matte silks, so 4 mattes. All the mattes are the same, so they're all matte silks, and 2 crystal pops, which is the in-between. So it goes like Crystal Chrome, Crystal Pop, and Diamond Dimension. The Crystal Pop is somewhere in the middle as far as like opacity. 1 Diamond Dimension, which is the sparkly topper shade, and then 2 Molten Satins. So the Pink Love palette doesn't have a Crystal Chrome shade, which is the one that has the most opacity as far as like the glittery shimmer shades. So, but you have only 4 matte shades and then 5 types of shimmer shades. Again, I go into the breakdown in that other video as far as like which ones are which shades, and I'll talk about it when I'm going over on my when I'm doing my eye look. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the swatches that I already did. These were done in natural sunlight, and the first one I'm going to compare to is the Pillow Talk Beautyverse Love palette. This is the large holiday palette. They came out last year for holiday. It's the 9 pan, but is the larger one, and it is, and I'll show it to you in a second, but this is it. Now you can see it's not as pink, it's more warm leaning, and then you have that deep shade in the middle. That deep shade is very similar to the deep shade that's in the Super Neutral palette, but you know, it's a little bit more warm leaning, and you've got some similarities. So I would say, you know, again, if you were looking for more of a cool tone pink palette and you want the Charlotte Tilbury formula, then you might want the Pink Love. However, if you did get this palette and, you know, you don't necessarily need, you know, something that's cool tone, I think you pretty much are going to get similar shades. Now, you don't have those like first two shimmery shades. That first one, which is the Molten Satin, and the second one is the Diamond Dimension. You're not going to get those kind of shades, but everything else is kind of similar, so you probably don't need it. But that's the Beauty vs. Love palette. The next one are two different palettes. This is the first 6 shades are the Charlotte Tilbury Darling palette, and the second one is the Pillow Talk Dreams palette. Now you can see those two palettes are actually very, very similar to each other, and they're also, both of them are very, very warm leaning. So very different because yes, it's kind of pinky, but at the same time it's more warm leaning, where this palette is more neutral or even cool toned. Next we have two, so that's it for Charlotte Tilbury. The next one I have is the Electric Pink palette. This is from Sigma Beauty. This came out, I want to say last year, maybe a little bit longer than that. This is a 9-pan. This is like an on-the-go 9-pan. This one I think is probably the most similar. I have two Sigma palettes to compare to 9-pans. Very similar. You know, you're not going to get the sparkle that you have in the other palettes in the Charlotte Tilbury, but you're going to get kind of similar looks. I really like the Electric Pink palette. Now that 6th shade, that matte shade, I don't know what happened to it. It would not swatch. So, but other than that, the palette is really nice. I really like it. I have a whole review on the channel for that, but it's a really nice palette, especially if you're looking for something more affordable. And then the next one is the Sigma Beauty Rosy palette. Again, it's also an on-the-go palette. This one also very, very similar, a little bit more depth in the palette. Now you're not going to get the sparkle like you are going to get in that Diamond Dimension shade, but you got some similar tones. Again, I do think it's a little bit more warm leaning, but you've got a lot more depth. So I do like the Charlotte Tilbury formula better, but you're going to get similar you know, shades. So again, if you're looking for, this is more of if you don't want to spend the $60 on this palette. So a lot of people, or you really like the palette, but you don't like the clear top, or you want a mirror and you don't want to spend it because you know it's like, I'm paying luxury prices. This isn't luxury. I disagree, but I understand where a lot of people are coming from. So that's the case, kind of just giving you some alternatives. But as far as like pink, like I don't really have much like this types of shades. Maybe in larger palettes, but again, I didn't want to start getting into like larger palettes because I'm kind of comparing to this size. So that's it for my swatch comparisons. Let's go ahead and do the try on. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, if you're new to my channel, I do very basic looks. Very basic transition shade, kind of out of the quarter, you know, cover it up with the, you know, a shimmer, pop it on. That's kind of my look. So that's what I'm gonna do today. Not a makeup artist, blending is not my forte. And I think, you know, but again, I'm gonna give you a realistic, everyday, average person, you know, view of how this makeup performs for someone, regular consumer. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go with the 5th shade for the transition shade. All the mattes are the same. They're all matte silk, so there's no different types of formulas within the mattes. So I'm just gonna go in and kind of go in. Now, the other two palettes worked really well, and I think the mattes are phenomenal. So I really do like the matte formula in these palettes. I think they work great. They go on, they blend really nicely, and I'm finding that even with this pink shade. So here is the first shade, and I don't think they have names, but there you go. So first shade of the Pink Love palette. Okay, next I'm gonna go in with the 6th shade. Again, it's kind of like a burgundy, like the deep, I think that's the deepest shade. Yeah, it's the deepest shade in the palette. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to just go in the outer corner, like I always do, and then bring it in into the crease and then blend it out. So now one of the things I had with the Super Neutral palette was that the shades were very, very close. I'm not finding that with these. That was my one kind of complaint with the Super Neutral palette was a lot of the shades were very, very close, especially in their 6 mattes. They probably could have gotten rid of one matte and done another, like a shimmer. So that was kind of that one, but this one is blending out really nicely. So again, that is the matte shade. So that is shade 2. Okay, next is this Molten Satin shade. I'm gonna go in with that one. That is number 8, and there's two, I believe there's 2 Molten Satins. That top light white one is a Molten Satin 2. That's very similar to the other formulas in her quads that have that shimmer. So I am going to apply with the brush. These do had fallout. So the other 2 palettes that I've already done did have fallout. So I'm expecting these to have fallout. Which is fine. I normally do my eyeshadow before I do my base makeup anyway, so that's not a problem. This one's actually not too bad, but this is the satin, not any of like the really sparkly shades. So putting that on, going on really nicely. So that is the Molten Satin shade. Okay, so I'm gonna take the, let's see, I'm gonna go in with this white, the top Molten Satin shade, and I'm gonna put that in the inner corner. It goes on really nicely there. And then I'm gonna take this Diamond Dimension, the number 2 shade, and I am going to put that all over the lid to add some extra sparkle. And there you go. The Diamond Dimension shades, honestly, every palette has at least one Diamond Dimension shade. That's the special shades, I guess you could say. Like, you know, in these little 9 pans, that's the special shades. So are the Diamond Dimensions. So there you have it. Not too much fallout. I did go in with my finger, but there you have it. That is Pink Love. Okay, so now we're gonna go over the other one, which is Digital Lilac. So Digital Lilac is the purple one, but it's more, again, it's more lilac than purple. I really like it. Like, this is how I do purple, as opposed like to the Roxa palette. I only have 2 palettes to compare it to, but let's talk about the formulas really quick. So for this palette, this one has 4 matte silks. Then it has 1 crystal pop, 1 diamond dimension, and 3 molten satin. So the satins are all in the middle, and then you have 1 crystal pop, which is the 3rd shade right here. The diamond dimension is, I believe, the 1st shade right here, and that's it. So there's no crystal chrome in the Digital Lilac palette. So the Pink Love and the Digital Lilac do not have the crystal chrome formula in these 2 palettes. So good to know. This one, I think, again, has a good mixture. I don't like that there's 3 satins. I'm not the biggest satin person, but maybe in this kind of format, it works really well. Maybe as I start to use it, it will, you know, it will make sense to me. But let's go ahead and compare it to the 2 palettes. I did do swatch comparisons. So the first one is going to be a palette that you can't get anymore, but I did want to compare it to, because I don't have many purple palettes, especially ones of 9 pans. This is the Huda Beauty Purple Haze palette. So you'll see here, this one it's very different. You know, you've got almost like some reddish brown shades, you know, warm shades. You've got a couple purple shades. Again, it's a purple haze palette. Very, very different. So I did want to compare it because I do have it, and just in case anybody has it and wanted to see the comparison, it is very, very different. And then the other palette that I'm going to compare it to is the ABH Sugar palette. Again, not very similar. I think there's really only 1 purple shade and kind of 1 pinkish shade. And then you have that 1st shade on the bottom is the light matte shade. So not really that much similarity here, but I did want to compare it because that formula, a lot of people are talking about it. A lot of people love it. I think it's fabulous. I just picked it up because everybody else was raving about it in their year-end 2024 videos, and there was a sale, and I picked up basically all 4 of the ABH 9 pans, and they're really great quality, and they are half the price of the Charlotte Tilbury. So those are really the only 2 that I had to compare. Now there is a Sigma Beauty Hazy palette on the Go 9 pan. fan, but that's the one I just don't like. I don't know if mine is not good, but I just don't really like that palette, so I didn't compare it to, and honestly, it's very different as well. So I didn't compare it. I didn't swatch compare it. This is just, it's a really kind of, like I said, a lilac bright palette. So let's go ahead and try it on. So I'm going to do something similar that I did on this side, which is again, pretty much how I do my makeup. I'm going to go in with shade 2, which is one of the matte silks. So the matte silks are the top shade and the 3 bottom. Makes it easy. And then you have like the 1 crystal pop and the 1 diamond dimension. So it makes it easy as far as like which ones to look for. But I'm going to just apply this as the transition shade all over the lid. Now purples tend to be harder to work with. Lavender's not so much, but the Roxa palette is really great quality. I'm just not a big purple person. I do really like these shades a little bit better. They're a little bit brighter. And again, I think I tend to like lilac more than purple, and I kind of feel like that's not a huge difference, but it is subtle. Went on great, super, you know, blended out really nicely. So that is the first matte shade. Okay, so I'm going to go in with this bottom matte shade here. It's more of a kind of a burgundy purple. I don't know. This one's more burgundy. Looking at it, I don't know what kind of, you know, I don't know. I really can't tell you. It's kind of a shade of purple, but I'm going to do exactly what I did on the other side. And as you get into the deeper shades, that's really the key, is how do these blend out with the other ones? You know, do they blend out really nicely? Because again, purples are hard to work with. And that's one of the things I've learned as I've gotten into makeup. And, you know, neutrals are pretty easy to work with, but this is blending out really nicely. What I do like about these is that there's differences between the mattes. That was, if you watch my video on the super neutral palette, there was a lot of similarities, especially with 2 of the shades. So these have some differences, but blend out really nicely, not blotchy. Now, again, I'm not the best at applying eyeshadow. I think I'm good. I mean, I think I'm decent, but I'm not like the best at blending. But for me, blended out pretty nicely. So that is shade 2. Okay, and I'm gonna go brighter than I normally would, which is, you know, might as well. I'm gonna wash this right off because I have 2 different color eyeshadows. I'm gonna go in with this 6 shade right here. This is the 3rd of the Molten Satins. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it already in this video. The Molten Satin is, if you have any other Charlotte Tilbury formulas, now this one did have a little bit of fallout. I have had some fallout in some of the formulas, but normally I do my eyeshadow before I do my base makeup, so that's not a big problem for me. But you know, the Molten Satins are kind of like that shimmery shade. It's very similar formula to the ones that you're gonna find in the quads, but went on really nicely. I actually really like that. I actually like that more than I thought it would. Let me take out that little fallout, but that looks, I like that. I actually like that look. Okay, now I'm going to go in with the 3rd shade, which is the Crystal Pop shade, and I'm just going to put it in the inner corner. Actually, I'm going to go in with my finger on this one. Let's see if that does it better. I'm going to go in with my finger here and apply it. It goes on really nicely. Yep, probably not, it's not really layering well over the satin. You can see it, but probably not over that satin, not as well as I would like. But let's go in now with the Diamond Dimension shade, which as I mentioned before in the other palette, is that the Diamond Dimension shade is, those are the special shades in these little 9 pans. And this one particularly is really, really pretty. So I'm actually gonna go in with the brush on this one and apply it. Now probably will have some fallout here, but there you have the sparkle, and I really like this one. These are more of toppers, and I think this palette, because of the name, there's a Digital Lilac shade in the Beautyverse palette, the original one, so I think this palette is inspired by that. But there you have the Digital Lilac look. Okay, so I went ahead and put on some mascara, came back, and let's go ahead and talk about these palettes. So now I did mention I did receive these in PR. However, I was planning on purchasing 4 of the 6. The 2 that I was not planning on purchasing was the purple and the blue, just because I'm not a colorful eyeshadow person. However, I actually like this purple. It's like a wearable purple. I think it's more wearable, and again, it makes sense because it's Charlotte Tilbury. So definitely, and I kind of use like the brightest shades in the little palette. So I actually kind of really like it, surprisingly enough. So I wasn't planning on purchasing it, but I do really like it. But am I gonna use it a lot? Probably not. But maybe I will, I don't know. But let's talk about the Pink Love first. So the Pink Love, I think, is beautiful. I think it's great. Again, I don't really have a lot like this. I was surprised when I was trying to do swatches, and especially one in a smaller pan. Maybe I do in a larger pan because I have so many large pan palettes. But if I'm gonna travel, this is gonna be perfect. And I think that these are really great for travel because they're lightweight, they're thin, obviously no mirror. So they're going to be lightweight, and I can take all 6 with me easily on vacation and get, and be set. So I do really like this. Now, I did compare it to the Beautyverse from this past, Christmas, and you can see here, this is the palette. So this one's $69. This is $60. This one's deeper. I didn't like this one as much as I liked the one the year before. This one, that one is still available too at $75. This one, it's very similar though, and you can go back and look at the swatch comparisons. This one's a little bit deeper. So it just depends. Honestly, this one is easier. I like this one more as far as the color story. But if you are one that don't like the clear plastic, you want the mirror, you want that feel luxe, get this one. It's still available, and honestly, it's been on sale already, and it's probably going to go on sale again because it is still available. It's limited edition, but it is still available. So that's what I would say. I think it's a good alternative. However, if you have this one, maybe don't get this one. I don't know. It's different enough, but it's still pretty similar, and the formulas are very similar. So I would say that. As far as the other like quads and stuff, no, there's nothing. The Sigma ones I think are nice alternatives, not dupes, but alternatives that are more affordable. You could get both of these at full price for this palette, right? But you could also get these on sale. So Sigma always has a sale, and you could get these and it'll be a more affordable option. You're not gonna get that sparkle, but you're gonna get similar shades as well. So I do think these are both really, really great. Again, this one shade, this Cosmopolitan shade, I don't know, but it's also a shade I really haven't used, but I need to probably, it's got hard pan. So I need to check that one out, but everything else looks really nice. So those are kind of alternatives, not as much as the other ones that I had. Now for the purple palette, again, kind of like it. I'm kind of surprised. Really pretty. I don't like that there's 3 satins. I kind of wish there was more of the chrome shades, the special shades, but it's fine. I think it's a really pretty palette. This is how I do purple. Not really comparable to either of these, but if you're like me and you don't really wear a lot of color and you don't really need a purple palette, then maybe get this one from ABH, $30 or $29, and you're going to get a purple shade, you got a pink shade, so you've got a little bit of variety here as well. So you're not going to get the purple mattes, and these purple mattes are really, really nice, but maybe you don't really want purple mattes, maybe you just want the pop of purple sparkle. You're going to get that in here. So, but if you're looking for like a really good quality purple mattes, then I think this one, or more lilac mattes, then I think this one is a really good palette. I think I'm getting ready to do my declutter. I'm probably going to be getting rid of my Roxa because I know I'm not going to use it, and I'd rather give it to somebody that I know is going to use it than, and this is going to give me my purple. So I do really like this, but I don't really have many alternatives as far as this one is concerned too. So not many alternatives unless you are like me and you're not a big color person. Then you can get like enough, like some purple in this little 9 pan here. But that is it. That is for the pink and purple palettes for Charlotte Tilbury. Stay tuned for the blue and green ones coming up shortly. And as far as these, again, I think they're worth it, but I didn't pay for them. I got them in PR, but I was planning on paying for them, so there you go. But Charlotte Tilbury usually has a sale on Memorial Day weekend, so if you want to wait, then you can probably wait on these. And then I would also say you can buy 2 palettes for, I think the discount is like 100, you get like $6 off. Yeah, I think it's instead of 120, it's 114. But, you know, or wait for a sale. Like wait for a sale. You can save 15% off with my promo code, which will be down below. But again, Charlotte Tilbury usually has a sale in May, and I don't think, even though they're limited edition, they could sell out, but I don't think they will. So there you go. But I do really like them. So with that, if you like this video, click like, click and subscribe. That way you get a notification every time I post a new video. Bye everyone.